The hardest part is not starting the conversation, but finding the courage to continue it. Sometimes, what we fear the most is the very thing we need to face to move forward. In relationships, silence often speaks louder than words, but words can heal what silence cannot. We don't always need answers. Sometimes we just need to be heard. Ignoring the issues today only makes them more complicated tomorrow. The truth is not always easy to speak, but it is always worth saying. A conversation that matters isn't about winning, it's about understanding each other's hearts. We often avoid the conversations we need to have, but those are the ones that can bring the most healing. The things left unsaid often carry the greatest weight until we choose to release them. What we don't address can silently divide us, even when we don't realize it. Talking about our feelings doesn't make us weak, it makes us real. When words fail, our emotions can take over, creating distance instead of connection. Sometimes saying less can speak volumes, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't say something. We may not always agree, but we can always choose to listen and try to understand. There's nothing more powerful than the peace that comes from having the right conversation at the right time. It's not about what happened, but how we move forward together after it. Each unspoken word is an opportunity lost to build a stronger connection. Waiting too long to speak up often makes the conversation more difficult than it needs to be. The moment we decide to open up is the moment we choose healing over hiding. Silence may seem comfortable, but it's the conversations we avoid that often hurt the most. What we feel is valid, even if we don't know how to express it. It's not about saying everything perfectly. It's about being willing to say what matters. It's the conversations we avoid that often hold the answers we need to move forward. When we speak from the heart, we create a space where healing and understanding can grow. No conversation is ever easy, but every meaningful conversation is worth the effort. The most important conversations are the ones we're too afraid to start. A heart that is heard is a heart that feels understood, and that's the foundation of connection. If we never say what we're really thinking, we risk living in the shadow of what we could have had. Facing our fears, even in conversation, brings us closer to the truth we need to move forward. There's strength in vulnerability, especially when it's met with understanding. The silence between us can either tear us apart or bring us closer together, depending on how we choose to address it. We can only move past what's hurting us by being brave enough to talk about it. A relationship without communication is like a plant without water. It will eventually wither. It's easy to live in the comfort of silence, but true connection only comes through honest conversation. We don't always need to have the right words, just the courage to speak them. When we choose to speak, we invite understanding into the space where fear once resided. Ignoring our feelings today only makes them harder to face tomorrow. Sometimes a simple conversation can change the course of everything we've been avoiding. The longer we hold on to the things we need to say, the more power they have over us. Conversations don't just fix problems, they open the door to solutions we never thought possible. The silence we endure can be louder than any words, but it doesn't have to be the final word. A meaningful conversation begins with listening, even when it's hard to hear. The hardest truths are often the ones that set us free once we finally speak them. It's not about how long we wait, but how willing we are to talk when it counts the most. When we speak our truth, we give the other person the chance to see us fully without masks. Speaking from the heart isn't always easy, but it's always necessary for true connection. Sometimes the silence between us is just a reminder of what we need to say to heal. We can't fix what we refuse to face, and we can't grow without having the tough conversations. The things we leave unsaid often have the power to shape our relationships for better or worse. In every relationship, the real breakthrough comes when we choose to speak, even when we're scared. We need to talk now, before the silence becomes too loud to ignore. The weight of unspoken words can feel unbearable, but saying them can set us free. Avoiding the hard conversations only builds walls that make it harder to reconnect. To truly understand each other, we must first be brave enough to express what's inside. When we avoid talking about the things that matter, we risk losing the things we value the most. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real and honest with each other. The hardest conversations are often the ones we need to have the most. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, but it can also leave us feeling lost. We all carry emotions that need release, but fear often keeps us quiet. Not everything is said, but everything is felt until it becomes too much to carry. The truth can be difficult to share, but living without it can be unbearable. Our hearts have a language, but sometimes we forget to listen to it. There's a moment in every relationship where things need to be said before it's too late. When feelings are left unspoken, they only grow heavier, waiting for a chance to be freed. We don't always know how to express what we feel, but that doesn't mean it's not important. Sometimes we wait for the right moment to talk, but the right moment is right now. Unspoken words can haunt us, but honesty brings clarity, even when it's hard. It's easy to ignore the small cracks in a relationship, but soon they become the foundation of distance. You don't realize the weight of unspoken words until they start to weigh on your soul. We need to speak before the silence becomes louder than our connection. The right conversation at the right time can change everything. Waiting too long to address what's on our minds can make us feel like we're losing each other. What we leave unsaid often becomes the biggest barrier between us. We all have things we need to say, but the fear of rejection makes us keep them inside. It's not about winning or losing. It's about understanding each other's hearts. Sometimes we need to risk vulnerability to find the connection we're missing. The longer we wait, the harder it becomes to say what really matters. Sometimes the hardest part isn't saying what's on your mind, it's having the courage to start. There's strength in speaking your truth, even when it feels like you're standing alone. Silence may seem safer, but it slowly erodes the foundation we've built together. Our emotions are valid, even when they seem impossible to explain. Sometimes we need to face the uncomfortable truth to find peace with each other. Our hearts communicate in ways words can't capture, but sometimes words are what we need. Unspoken thoughts linger in the background of every interaction, creating distance we can't see. It's not about what we say, it's about how we listen when the time comes. There's a moment in every relationship when you realize it's time to talk or lose touch forever. We wait for the perfect moment to speak, but sometimes it's the imperfect moment that matters the most. If we don't address the things we feel, we risk letting them build walls between us. Every conversation is a chance to understand each other better and heal what's hurting. Avoiding hard topics may seem easier, but the consequences of silence are heavier than we realize. Talking about what hurts doesn't make us weak. It makes us stronger together. Sometimes the most healing words are the ones we've been avoiding the longest. There's nothing stronger than vulnerability in a conversation that matters. When we speak from the heart, the truth becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. Even the hardest conversations are worth having if they bring us closer to understanding. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about hearing each other with empathy and love. The moments when we feel the most afraid to speak are often the moments we need to talk the most. Sometimes what we're most afraid of saying is exactly what needs to be said. If we let time pass without speaking, we risk losing the connection we once cherished. Every silence carries a message, but it's not always the message we want to hear. The more we hold in, the more it hurts when we finally let it out. What we don't talk about quietly builds between us until it's too much to ignore. Every conversation has the power to change the course of a relationship, for better or worse. Words are our bridges, but silence can easily become the wall. If we don't talk about the small things, they become the big things we can't avoid. Sometimes, the hardest conversations lead to the most profound healing. The longer we wait to speak, the harder it becomes to say what we truly feel. Real connection comes from shared honesty, not from hiding the truth. It's not about what's said, it's about how we make each other feel when we finally speak. Communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. Without it, we slowly drift apart. What we need to say today will matter more tomorrow if we say it now. A heart that holds too many words unspoken will eventually find it hard to love. There's power in our vulnerability, especially when it's shared with the right person. Sometimes, the only way forward is to sit down and have the conversation we've been avoiding.